Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone's weekend was lovely. My weekend was really good. I'm sure you remember on Friday I was very tired. So that evening I redid my own nails, which I'm super excited about. Then Saturday, I did notes on Saturday and Sunday, though I've realized I didn't get through all of the notes that I needed to do. So that is good to know, because that means that I need to start doing notes on the weekdays as well, so I get through all of the notes for each text and then catch up, because I'm only behind 5 books for notes, but that can pile up very quickly. And it's tedious. It's such a tedious process. So I think that's also why I'm behind, because my brain is like, oh, I'm so tired. But can't be tired yet, because I have to pursue until my exam at the end of September. So to get right into it, today so this week is so it's not as heavy, but it is heavy, because we have 2 craft texts and a theoretical text this week. And then I have 8 books of poems to finish this week. That stupid word. So I actually have 2 collections by Juliana Spar. Juliana Spar wrote Well Then There Now, which I read for my literature exam, and I used it to answer one of those questions that I had for that exam. I love her. She's just phenomenal. And I have actually already read one of these collections, this Connection of Everyone with Lungs. I finished this back in April, but I didn't write as detailed of notes as I should have, so I'm rereading it again this week. Then her other collection, Ars Poetica, is her newest collection, actually. I think that collection came out either this year or last year. It's super new. But today we are doing Dark Ecology by Timothy Morton. This collection, I had actually already started reading this collection, and the reason this week's readings, so I don't have to read, I think I have to read like 32 pages of this per day in order to finish the collection. And Morton is dense, super dense. The jargon in this, like, he uses colloquial verbiage, or I'm sorry, Timothy Morton is they, them. They use colloquial verbiage, but it is my personal opinion that Morton is just on another plane, like super brilliant and kind of hard to understand, because they just exceed beyond what most of us can comprehend. So I'm really hoping, as you'll see, like I'm already to page 53 in here, but I'm going to restart and start reading from the beginning, because I just don't think that I processed what I needed to process in this collection. Anyway, then our one of the other craft texts is The Art of the Poetic Line by James Longenbach. And I don't know if I've read this or not. If I have read this, it's been years and years. It's been since probably my master's degree. Then there's Structure and Surprise, Engaging Poetic Turns, which is edited by Michael Theune. This is going to be a collection of essays from various creative writers. And then today's poetic text is The Last Song of the World by Joseph Fasano. I have not read work by Joseph Fasano yet, so this will be fun to read. I love reading work by new poets. Well, new poets. Dang it. So this was published by BOA, and in order to get into big publishing houses like BOA, or I can't think of the other publishing, Penguin House, any type of those publishing houses, you generally have to be around for a while. So I'm sure he's published multiple collections, and this is the first time I'm coming into contact with him. So all that being said, I'm going to do my best to keep this video today under 20 minutes. So let's get started. Okay, so we are back. I got into page 33 of Dark Ecology by Timothy Morton. And so far, I'm really glad that I came back to reread the sections that I had read a few months ago, because the second time around it's making a lot more sense. So Morton, they like to utilize well-known words like weird, space, place, and redefine them in a way that pulls from languages like Latin or Greek, or like languages that aren't dead per se, but he's using the antiquated version of the word. So he spends, and this book is divided into 3 what he calls threads. So the chapters are quite long. So I won't finish this first chapter probably until either tomorrow or Wednesday morning. But in the first 33 pages, he has defined space, place, dark ecology. They go over the 6th mass extinction, which is the concern in our current contemporary 21st world. That is, all of the environmentalists are concerned about the 6th mass extinction that's caused by humans. It's a mode of the Anthropocene, or it's a cause of the Anthropocene. And he goes over the Anthropocene denial, deniers, and like who those types of people are, which he terms as colonialism, racism, object-oriented ontology, I think is a part of that, and the same, and as well as like hubris of humanity. Then discusses the arguments humans have with each other on terminology. So I think his redefining of terms is also kind of I don't know if I want to say irony, but he's pointing out how humans in a world that is consumed by greed will redefine terms to benefit them. And I think that Morton is doing their best to remove biased terminology and redefine terms in ways that are truly understood. So they also talk in loops. Like, they use metaphor, but like not really metaphor. They use examples and facts that come from science and then loop it back to small stories that reinvest in their argument that humans are causing the 6th mass extinction and kind of just like burying our heads like an ostrich, right? To ignore the damage that we're doing. He talks, and I think he's using this method of communication. It reminds me of Sarah Ahmed, actually, and how she talks in her theoretical text. But I think that he's using this loop to perpetuate the cycle, which is very much what Carson talks about, right, in Silent Spring. And then he goes into talking about how bees and ants may not just be workers, as per the algorithms that they are confined to, but that they might have intelligible thought processes, and how And I think that he's using this to bring awareness to how humans could be more aware of their impact on the environment. So that's about where I'm at with the Morton text, and I'm going to take a break, eat something, and then I'll come back. Okay, so we're going to get right back into it. I think what I'm going to do to preserve time, to keep this video short, is I'm just going to read both of these craft texts back to back without stopping the video, and then I'll come back and tell you guys kind of what each of those are covering. I'm supposed to read 24 pages out of the Longenbach and then 49 pages out of the Theune, so hopefully I just whip through this. I'm trying to get done sooner rather than later today, because I want to reserve a few hours later this afternoon for notes so I can continue to catch up on my notes. But let's get started. Okay, so I have finished the readings that I needed to do in The Art of the Poetic Line. Dang it. I always love reading craft texts. So this one was focusing more on lineage within a poem and how syntax, line, meter, rhythm, rhyme, all of these things work together in order to cultivate an effect that the author wants so far. Structure and surprise went over turns that are happening. It's going over specific structures. So I wrote about the concessional structure, the emblem structure, and the ironic structure, and how each of those structures are utilized in poetry and what poets are doing with that to communicate a message, not just within the poem, but beyond the poem. So I am going to take a break, eat some lunch, see if my freaking package has arrived. I'm waiting on a package today, so I'm, a little anxious about that. Not anxious, but excited. Dang it. That being said, I did complete my notes while I was reading today, other than the Morton. I haven't completed the Morton notes yet. But I did both of the notes on the craft text, which is pretty relieving, actually. So I might continue to do that just to save myself time over the weekends. Weekends are kind of hard to work. I did note-taking a lot this past weekend, and I knocked out, I think, 8 of the 13 texts that I had. But I still have the rest of Carson to finish, and I have the rest of Bait to finish, which is fine. Oh, it's also cool to see how Bait and Morton and Carson are connecting in the craft texts. So concessional structure is used. I think I'll find a lot of examples in the Poetics that I'm reading that utilizes the concessional structure, because the concessional structure is like making a concession of information to begin with, and then showing, and it's usually, it can like bridge into confession, and then it spends the rest of the poem pleading with the reader to like listen as to why that initial concession was wrong. So I'm seeing this as a thread or theme or trope within Ecopoetics, because Ecopoetics is all about trying to, a lot of eco-poets are trying to reach their listeners to help make environmental changes in our current world. So anyway, I'm gonna go eat. 2:30. So I cheated. I didn't time-lapse myself reading Joseph Fasano, but I did read him. And I'm hesitant to say too much. I think so I did some background research on him, and his goal is to open poetry beyond the academic and the niche field of readers, which is great. That is a great goal. And in reading this, a lot of his poetry reminded me of Instagram poetry, which I am not a fan of that type of poetry. I mean, he got reviewed, I guess I don't really know these people, but Maggie Smith, Gregory Orr, and Alex Dimitrov all reviewed him. I know I've heard Maggie Smith, but she might even be on my list. But I was not super impressed, to be honest. And that could, I don't know, I'm always hesitant to say something like that, because usually I think it's because I'm not understanding what I'm reading. But this was, I don't know, I felt like I did understand what I was reading, and it wasn't as complex as the poetry that I'm usually used to reading, which I like. I really like The Octopus Game by Nikki Beer. It's so complex in how she writes. It's just out of this world. It's phenomenal. Go Figure by Ray Armentrout is another collection that I was just like, wow, it just totally astounded me. A lot of the poets who I read last week are in that field where they're making moves that are so complex within such a small space that it's really fun to read and figure out kind of like the Easter eggs that they hide within their poetry. And I just really Fasano really didn't do that for me. I do think he is a good poet for those who maybe are not familiar with poetry. Although I would still encourage people who are not familiar with poetry to still dive into the more complicated poetry, because it's like so rich. But yeah, Fasano was not really for me, which is not to say that he's not a good poet, right? Just because I was not a fan of his book doesn't mean that other people can't be a fan of his book, right? Or his type of writing. And he, like, of course, he should be proud of, like, all of the accomplishments he's gotten so far in his life. And he has a purpose with what he's writing, which is great. I just was not a fan of his book. So, that being said, I have finished my reading today. It's 2:30. I'm also doing laundry, so doing a little multitasking there. And I will move on to note-taking, which I'm not going to film, but I think that this video will be under 20 minutes, so I have accomplished my goal. And with that, this concludes part 7 of the Practical Poetics studying, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.